Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hello girls, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fitness Academy's podcast. I'm your host, Siggy, one of the WFA's educators and a women's online coach. Today, I'm actually joined by a fellow educator of the Women's Fitness Academy as well. Her name is Gemma Mullins, and Gemma is also a coach that provides one-on-one coaching and mentoring for women online. Her focus is largely around education. She has a really cool holistic view on health, habit formation, and making her clients feel confident in and outside of the gym. I'm excited for today's conversation. Before we even started recording, we're listing what we're wanting to actually chat about. So yeah, Gemma, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm also excited. I'm pumped after our pre-recorded chat.
I know, right? Like, so where do we go with this conversation?
Yeah, there's so many things we can discuss. Let's try to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully we won't be here for 2 hours.
Yeah, we probably will be, but let's see how we go.
I love it. Awesome. So I've already told our listeners that you are also an educator of WFAs, which is awesome. And you actually run your first workshop. Was it last month or the month before?
Yeah, it was in January, and the next one is mid-March, which I'm really excited about as well. The first one went well, and I've really enjoyed it, especially doing so much work online at the moment. The biggest thing I'm missing is human contact. So just being with people like the girls that have similar interests at the start of their journey, I really enjoyed it as well.
So good. I love that. So in terms of training, how do we get into fitness? Well, what inspired you to, get into it?
The biggest turning point, and I always refer back to this as my pivot point, was in January of 2015. I'd actually had a gym membership for 6 to 9 months before 2015, and I really struggled with anxiety in the gym. So I think just my own social anxiety was really played out in a gym environment. I actually remember needing to cancel that membership because I wasn't using it, and that in itself was giving me further anxiety. How am I going to cancel? It was really something I was struggling with a lot in my head around that time. And when I did go, a handful of times that I went, I would walk in, hope that no one would talk to me, go off to the women's only area on the left, and then just go around the circuit of the machines that they had. No flow to anything that I was doing. I just wanted to kind of not feel like I was being watched or seen, get in, and then basically get out. So I never, in the entire time of having that gym membership, went to the second level of the gym. I was really struggling with just the gym environment. And by no reason of a bad experience at that gym, it was purely just something that I really struggled with initially, feeling like you're being watched. And I know I've spoken to other people since then as well, who have felt similar and who choose to train at home for this reason. So I know that I'm not alone in this, but that was, let's just call that 2014. And then the start of 2015, I was kind of just thinking, I'm sick of this holding me back. I was studying in uni. I really wanted to get into event management, and I was working 2 or 3 jobs. I was very much a workaholic, and I did not have a balance whatsoever. So it was just the 3 jobs, the uni at that time, probably going out and drinking with friends, and it just was all over the shop. So I kind of just had enough. So I went and did a trial for a boot camp, and the first class of the boot camp, think of the kind of boot camp where it's like tire throwing, sledgehammers on a tire, balls. There was a lot going on. It was like a big exposure to gem, and I ran to the toilet to dry reach because it was just a shock to the system. And then I signed up for 3 challenges in a row. So from that one horrific but also moment where I was like, I've just got to send this, I then did the first 12-week challenge, second 12-week challenge, and third 12-week challenge, which brought me into September of 2015. So I kind of just committed and never looked back. And during that 9-month period, I experienced a massive change in my mindset. I became that person that would be at the 6 a.m. boot camp 4 days a week. And I became that person who started getting noticed in the classes as kind of leading the classes around me and motivating other girls. And it wasn't expecting that, and that wasn't my plan. But then it got to the end of the boot camp experience, which I know a lot of women also have this similar timeline where you do the boot camp, but then you think, what's next? Like, I can't really be doing a boot camp and constantly dieting and being in that challenge mindset. It's not really a sustainable long-term model for health and fitness and training. So I then went back to the gym, but this time I had felt a bit better about it. And my best friend Morgan had also had a qualification in personal training, even though he was doing something else, and he offered to come with me. So I signed up and would just go with him initially, and he would just teach me how to use machines, gradually building up that confidence. Tried a few of those different, 12-week programs and things to do at the gym. Spent a while kind of winging it and learning, making a lot of mistakes because I didn't have a coach, but still was really happy to be consistently going to a gym based on my experience in 2014. Fast forward a few years, I got coaches, I got PTs, I learned more, I built up my confidence. And then I had a really good coach who was kind of switching my mindset around, what's actually important, how am I managing stress, all of these other aspects, which I really enjoyed. And then other people around me were also going in that direction as well, and I was really enjoying that. And then I was working in an office, and I was kind of the lady who was at the office first thing, because she just did the 1,000 steps and was organizing the fruit bowl in the office and was telling people we should do a corporate triathlon. So if anyone on the outside was looking in, they could probably see where I was going to end up. But around 2017, I decided to just study further. So I was working full time and studying my Cert 3 and 4. And then at the end of 2017, I just quit that corporate job. And a lot of people were saying, something I've heard a lot actually, which I'd love to dive into, is I kept hearing that the industry was saturated and that PTs are a dime a dozen. And I don't know if they realize this, but as a very stubborn person, I just thought, bring it. Like, this isn't going to deter me. Like, there's enough people that need help was my view. And 2017, quit, and then decided I wanted to get into being a coach. I did have a personal loss in 2018 where my dad passed away. So I did have plans of kind of going headfirst into coaching, but I then decided to do group classes because it suited me taking him to chemo and all of that kind of stuff. So I was kind of not derailed, but my focus was shifted in 2018 because of that. And then after that period of my life, I then decided to go back into one-on-one coaching, which I fell in love with. So the last few years seemed like a bit of a blur because of the pandemic, but it was a combination of training people face-to-face when we could, which I loved, running small group classes, which I also loved, and then online because we had to. And then I realized how good online can be, me being a client of other coaches online, as well as me being a coach and seeing how I like things to be run. So that's a brief overview, meshing in me and my coaching, as well as my own journey to becoming a coach.
I freaking love that. So such a cool journey, because you don't realize how far you've come till you actually express it to someone and you're like, whoa, it's actually taken me like quite a while to reach to where I'm at right now. And I love the fact that you mentioned that I'm not laughing at it because I can totally relate to it, that you would avoid people in the gym when you first started and you're like, don't talk to me, I'm just going to do my thing. Like I was literally that girl. I would walk into the gym, not say hello, like try and avoid eye contact, go on the treadmill, do my sprints. Once I'm done with the sprints, I'll do my core exercises, then just leave and go and just repeat it. And you made really good pointers around here that we all need to experiment on our own, whether we make the mistakes or whether we progress. That's how we start reaching a full potential and noticing where you've started and where you at right now, which I think is so freaking awesome to just hear it from another person's view. And I know for our listeners, they're probably going, oh my God, that was me as well. Like, I can't believe it. I'm not on my own. This is not just me who's, was really weird and awkward in the gym. It's just like, nah, girlfriend, it's all of us.
Absolutely. And there's so many bits that I would have missed in there as well. Like, so much has happened. It all kind of blends in. It is really good to look back though and think of the mindset shift that was there. And even in all of the mistakes that I made, like I went through a phase where I just wanted to add load to the bar. But looking back at the videos, I did not earn the right to like add load to the bar. I was not moving well. But all of those mistakes and the fact that you still taking the risk when it is, even if it ends up in a failure or a lesson learned, that takes balls. So I think that learning to take a risk, because what's the worst that can happen, but then also what's to be gained. Looking back at us both deciding to train even though we were scared, and then looking at all of those different things along the way, it grows your character and your resilience, because you realize that you can handle anything. And I think that's one of my favorite things about training, is that learning about yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, again, because training is not just about you entering the gym and getting the lifts done. It's literally training your mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Like thinking something's hard, but I am going to do it anyway because I can do hard things. I think that's really important. Or thinking I started at A and now I'm at B. And I didn't know I could do that. Like I think those lessons really transfer to every other element of your life. And I don't think people realize that until they start strength training or start in the gym.
They really don't, to be honest. There was a period where I didn't realize how much progress I made till I think I got sat down by my first coach, and he's like, hey, listen, like you've been training for these amount of years, but look of what you've accomplished on your own. Yes, you may have injured. Yes, you may have under-eaten, but like look at what has been happening over the years for you to reach this point where now you feel comfortable training independently in the gym and doing weights where previously you wouldn't even look at let's say a pull-up bar, because he's like, oh no, like I'm just going to stick to the running.
Yeah, I think like there's 2 points that just stuck out to me. The first is when we focus so much on what's next, I feel like we then can not allow ourselves to celebrate the milestones along the way. So I've done that as well, where I'm like, okay, cool. Like I've reached this. Now I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. And then you need to also kind of go through those periods of just not just existing, but just enjoying training for what it is and not necessarily reaching straight away for the next thing. Because I think so many big shifts, the second point that I was going to bring up, like the non-scale victories, I think should be of equal importance to the body comp goal or the strength goal. So I think that like we would do it with our clients, but doing it with ourselves, like celebrating whatever it is that you've achieved, that you're not your typical things that we highlight on social media, which is kind of those great celebrations, but there's those little things that are just as important.
100%. I'm really glad that you made that second point, because I'm a big advocate for non-scale victories. And again, like you said, it could look like anything, whether it is the progression in the gym, whether it's a progression personally, whatever. Like, I think everyone needs to start noticing the little shifts that they make, whether it's on a daily, weekly, monthly, and celebrate those, whether they're big or small, because we forget as humans, we forget of how far we've come, and we don't give enough credit to ourselves. And to that first point that you made is that we're always wanting the next best thing. It's just like, whoa, hold on a second, sit back, enjoy what's happening right now, and then focus on the next thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I even had this kind of realization this week for myself, which is I'm a big advocate for the fact that you should record your workouts. You don't have to go overboard and make it a whole movie every session, but just recording 1 or 2 exercises a week can have a massive impact on your technique improving and, moving safely and so on and so forth. And I have been doing this for my own training for a while, but I still do have moments when the gym is really busy where I'm not wanting to be an inconvenience to somebody. So I don't want to, set up some obnoxious setup in the middle of a gym when that's obstructing people moving or anything like that. And this week I was filming a shoulder press, and then just like a group of guys wanted to use a leg extension that was probably 2 meters away from me. And I kind of had a moment there where I was like, oh, should I stop filming? I wasn't in their way at all, and it was no way impacting them, but just I know that they know that I'm filming. And I was just like, and what? Like, and so what? And I just like confidently walked over to my camera, turned it on, did my workout, and then that's what I would normally be doing. And we can still have those moments of kind of doubting ourselves, but I think that's another non-scale victory of, a win of confidence in the gym and realizing that we women especially like deserve our place there. We're not an inconvenience. Like I think as well, when you look at the gym floor where there's all of the dumbbells and all of the free weights, it is populated mostly by men sometimes. And I think that just reiterating that we deserve to be there, and we're not an inconvenience.
Yeah. I love the fact that you mentioned about recording your lifts, because for a very long time when I first started training, I had this self-doubt that I can't record myself. This is just not going to work out. I'm going to be an inconvenience for people. People are just going to ask me too many questions. And you have this like shame inside of you going, nah, not going to do it. Now I freaking rock my tripod. I'll just place it wherever I need to. And if someone asks a question, I'll be like, yeah, I'm recording my set. It is what it is. And by us doing more of that work, it also empowers our clients to do more of it as well, and making them realize that this is the new norm.
Absolutely. I even had a really cute moment at the start. It might have been the weekend where I didn't bring a tripod this time, but there's a lot of soft boxes at the gym, and a really easy way to set it up is just soft box, drink bottle, camera. And I set it up, and then the guy was using another soft box next to me, and he was doing box jumps, and he saw me set it up, and I had my headphones in, and he just gave me the thumbs up. He's like, good angle. I was just like, yes. But it's just kind of nice if you're confident about something, people feed off that confidence. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, it's so empowering to be able to record yourself, and to, again, going back to the non-scale victories, it's noticing the progression that you've made throughout the years or months or weeks, whatever, how long you've been training, to see the comparison. Like as you mentioned, back then when you didn't have a coach, you were wanting to increase the weight, but you were not able to do so because of their technique. When now you compare it to your lifting here, and it's just like, okay, look at the comparison, like how far you've come.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and another important thing is when you do have that maturity in the gym, I think remaining open-minded is super important. Yeah. I always refer to the Dunning-Kruger effect, which I've heard multiple coaches talk about, and it just really sticks with me, which is just kind of like you learn something, your confidence peaks, but it probably is going to take a long time until you're actually confident or competent in something. And so there's 2 points there. There's learning something and then not being overly confident. But then the second point is never knowing enough, and always just not getting too rigid with your way of thinking as a coach and as a gym goer. Like if you learn to do a certain style of training, I think it's important to realize there's multiple different styles. There's multiple different methods to get a result. And it's kind of like you don't need to be too fixed on right and wrong. I think that if you stay open to learning, then there's just so much to give. There's just so much more quality there, I think, because the more that you learn, it makes it so much more fulfilling in the gym, because there's constantly new things and new stimulus. And I think that's really important.
100%. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because there was one stage where in my career, I was focused on solely, I think it was like 1 or 2 systems. And I was like, I swore by these systems. Like, if someone just says it doesn't work, I'm just going to fight them and be like, nah, this is the way or the highway. But you learn the hard way as well, because then you realize you're being very one-sided, and there's so many other ways for you to progress, whether it's within training, the nutrition, everyone has their own belief. But then when you realize you can't push your beliefs on other people, you have to let them come to the party and be open-minded of, what changes they need to be making.
Yeah, there's so many points I want to bring up with that. The first being, I as well I've done a course, I've done the courses, you do more courses, and then that person running the course is very successful with the way that they do things. But the thing that I find that you need to step back is take everything, is it as a grain of salt, with a grain of salt? You know what I mean? Take everything like that and realize that everyone is coming from their unique set of what it is that they've learned with their life experience, with their qualifications. And there's probably another 20 or more, of course, of those people, thousands who are all doing something that gets a result that all contradict one another. And I think coming to that realization was kind of stressful, but also empowering, because then it makes you realize that you don't need to be too fixed. It's kind of like tools in a toolbox, especially as a coach, which leads into my next point. And I was thinking as well is that quote, there's only, we've all got 24 hours in a day, you're just not motivated enough. You're just not dedicated enough. And the issue that I have with that quote, and I still see it to this day on Pinterest and things like that, and this leads back into the coaching styles, is just everyone comes from a unique point of view and different responsibilities and different levels of privilege. And I think being aware of, if you treat everybody the same way and have the same method with nutrition and with training and having to do things really rigid, it's just not going to work in the real world, because people all have different values and time, and there's just so much to it that I definitely didn't know when I started coaching. I definitely thought, this is how I like to train. I know that this works, so let's apply that to the people that I'm training. But you very quickly realize that, not everyone wants to train 6 days a week, and you don't need to. And you can, train less, try different things. It might not necessarily be the exact method that I like for my own training, but it's still going to get them the result that they care about. So, so many things I could discuss there, but that was the main thing that stuck out was just the understanding that there's different ways of doing things, and they're not right or wrong. There's just different tools.
Yeah, and I love that point, because it takes me back to what I mentioned before, is that when you're just too fixated on one thing, you're not open-minded and you're not seeing what else can be used. And you know what? That's the beauty of being a coach. It's being open-minded about the other tools that you can use for your clients. And the question I have for you is, before we started recording, you mentioned that your view on health has shifted over the years. What has helped you shift your mindset around that?
I think originally training was more because I wanted to, change my body composition, and my shift was very much, on the aesthetics view side of things. And I didn't really know that the other side could be impacted so much, as in my stress levels would be better, mental health impacts, because I have this outlet that's increased my self-confidence and self-belief. And then also training clients and realizing how much all of these things are impacting them, and they've just come and said, I want to lose 10 kilos. But then you realize that them, eating better and having better digestion, and then sleeping better quality time with their partners, like all of these things just kind of feed off this goal that a lot of people come to when they start training. So for myself, I went through that journey of being really fixed on kind of, okay, what's next? Let's, get to a goal weight, and then let's do this other thing with a machine and see how heavy I can go. All of those kind of surface level goals. But then I quickly realized all of these other great things that can be gained. And then I started focusing more on the women's health side of things, and, what's happening with my cycle, what supplements can I take that are going to, or food that can I take that's going to enhance my, diet? And then it just went so much deeper with my own interest in this topic, as well as being mentored and learning from others, which fed into speaking with clients and realizing that that's what they were coming to me for. The fact that the feedback I got was you're not just a coach who comes in and then smashes you for the session and off you go. It was a lot more than that. And then I wanted to continue down that path. So I think all of that experience has just brought me to where I am now and where I'd like to continue to learn, because I just find it so interesting. And I feel like if people knew what they could gain by dedicating time to finding a training modality that they enjoy and nailing the basics with nutrition, if they knew the difference from point A to point B compared to the mindset of let's just do another challenge and let's just go really strict, I think it would be a lot easier of a sell, because they would realize how much better of a human that they can be functioning wise and happiness wise. So I'm really passionate about that.
So good. I can feel the passion. Seriously. Yeah. It feels so freaking good. And I love that you mentioned that a lot of people, and you know what, as coaches, some of us may still making these mistakes that we're jumping from challenge to challenge, hoping to notice the changes physically, but we're not actually realizing that we need to do a little bit more internal work, whether it's like the hormones, digestion, whether it's sleep, as you said, might be a little bit more personal with their partners and so on. Yeah. And one thing that I always reiterate to my clients, because, too often we get caught up with marketing and advertising and the selling of challenges, let's get summer's here. Well, summer's been here for quite a while, but when summer started and they'd be like 6 week shred and 8-week challenge and all this stuff, and people would like really want to start it because of the marketing, but they don't realize the more challenges you're doing, the further away you're going to be from that goal, because you will get to your goal much quicker with a coach who's actually going to be able to underline all the health issues or troubles that you're having, instead of doing an 8-week challenge, which only lasts for 8 weeks. And then you're most likely going to rebound post the 8 weeks. It's just like, well, then what? You're going to start a new challenge. And that's this repetitive cycle that people are doing, and they're not realizing it's actually worsening the situation.
Yeah, and I personally experienced that when I did initially start running classes. I started running classes where we had a challenge, and it took off pretty quickly. I was running like between 20 or 30 classes a week. The classes had between 20 or 30 participants, sometimes 40, and would have extra trainers, but that's a lot of people. And the model of the challenge, if you think about it from a marketing point of view, it's very emotive. If you can use language about how you're going to feel at 8 weeks, if you can sell something to someone about how quickly they can get it and XYZ, it is an easy sell compared to our position, which is, okay, yes, that's what you're doing at the moment, but what about if you didn't do that and you actually tried this instead? What would happen over a longer term period? And back to my experience with the challenges, and I had a lot of people contact me after I left and said, can you help me, basically? Because the experience was do the challenge, really dedicated, really motivated. And then the time in between the challenge was between 4 to 6 weeks. Then it was YOLO, out the window, I'm not in challenge mode at the moment. Then just before the next challenge would start, it was, okay, I'm going to get my shit together for the challenge. And it's not a good cycle. And also, depending on who runs the challenge and how ethical it is, because I think there's a spectrum with these things. Some of them are run better than others, but some of them really promote the double sessions. They promote the being as strict as possible, because that just shows how good that you've done. And I spoke to people who, one, have been injured by doing this model of just working themselves into the ground, but two, end up worse than what they started with. Because when I actually know someone personally who did really well with an 8-week challenge and became a poster child for that challenge, right? And then a year later, they emailed me and they said, I've developed binge eating tendencies. I have gained more weight than what I started with. And now I don't know what to do other than eat 1,200 calories and train 1 to 2 times a day. And from that personal experience, which was kind of pretty rough to hear, that definitely made me just rethink that whole model of absolutely that is not the way to go. If you're going to do a challenge, there needs to be an educational aspect to it. There needs to be a post-challenge plan. And yeah, that's basically, I could rant about the challenge situation because I got a lot of messages like that. And yeah, it again depends on how they're run, but I just think that I know that it's a harder sell, and I know that things that are interesting are what grab attention. And I know that telling people to train 4 days a week, get your good nutrition in, it's boring in some aspect, but it works. So that's the end of it. It honestly works. If you're willing and open to try this way, it's kind of like the turtle and the hare. You will be better off in the longer term. You just need to trust and not get sucked into the gimmicks.
Yeah, I love that. I love everything about that because, God, I'm not going to mention names, but there was a time and place where I worked for a company that did these challenges.
We're probably talking about the same one, but I've also decided to keep it on the hush.
Oh my God, I would actually laugh my head off if it is the same company.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's so common. And they used to tell the challengers that for them to get the best results, you would have to train twice a day. But if you miss a session, you make it up on the weekends. They weren't allowed to have carbohydrates. The only carbohydrates that they would have is from vegetables. And vegetables source is awesome, but it's not enough carbohydrates for a person to run, all day, every day. And it was limited calories as well. And like you said, a lot of them ended up with eating disorders post the challenges because they were too afraid of eating the usual food they had before because of the fear of gaining the weight back on or just not knowing what to do past that. So they just kept on doing the challenge after challenge and after challenge. And yeah, it's such a toxic way of looking at getting results.
Yeah, and as well, there's an element of we as coaches probably take for granted the amount of good information that we're surrounded by around movement and nutrition and mindset because we are following those people, we're talking to those people, we're reading those books, but people that come to us don't necessarily have that level of nutritional literacy because they haven't had to have it before because it's not what they're studying or what they're necessarily interested in. So with challenges, for example, depending on what information and just in a broader sense in the online space, because who do you trust? What do you listen to? There's just so much noise. And something that I didn't realize until I was speaking with people one-on-one is that level of nutritional literacy isn't there. So if you get told something that seems wild to us about nutrition or training, they don't really have any reason why they shouldn't believe that, because if someone is coming from a position of authority, or if someone's coming at someone with confidence, or maybe they look really good and then that's given them a position of authority of what they're saying, I think that basically people don't know what they don't know. So I think that it's important from a client point of view to really strip things back to basics and really try to get things from credible sources, as well as be cautious about what information you're taking in and what impact that's having on you. Because you still to this day, and I'm sure this will happen over a very long term, I will still have people questioning if they can eat carbohydrates and, just different questions that you take for granted. Like I've had people that I've spoken to before about, having eating a bit more protein to complement training goals. And then I've had emails back saying, what's protein in? And that's not, if you don't know, you don't know. And if you've never had to know, then you've never really looked into this. You kind of just assume you eat food. So I think that you really need to, take things from good sources, strip things back to basics, and try not to get caught up with anyone who speaks in absolutes, that's usually a pretty big red flag for me. If someone says you have to eat this way or you have to not eat this way, and I've probably done this before, and we've all made mistakes, but I've learned from those things, and I don't want to do that. And I try to promote people not listening to those people either, because it becomes very rigid and it can become not helpful as well.
No, not at all. There was a stage that I was oh my God. I literally, I'm laughing out loud because my brain's like, don't share this. This is silly. But I have to. I really have to, because you learn from your mistakes. There was a stage that I quit sugar, but I didn't necessarily quit sugar. I thought I quit it, but I didn't. So, I wasn't eating like pastries and candies and stuff, but on the weekends I would have wine.
Yeah.
I would have alcohol, like other types of sources of drinks that have sugar in them. But I was adamant that I was having sugar, and then I was getting clients on board going, yes, let's all quit sugar. But no one had an understanding of what that actually looks like or what that actually meant. So they were following what I was doing, and it's just, I wasn't doing the right things.
Yeah. And it's like, what's sugar in? Like, we don't know unless we know. And talking about nutrition, I think that something that there's a lot of kind of talk about, should you track, shouldn't you track? Something that I personally enjoyed about tracking, and other clients I've had have felt the same way, is yes, it is a learning curve to look at nutritional panels and scan things and log things. And yes, for the wrong person, that's probably not the right method, because they'll become overly pedantic about those numbers depending on their history. So that's a whole other story. But for the people who it's suitable for, it can be really eye-opening, because you learn, okay, nutritional panels are set out in the way that the biggest concentration of the ingredient is at the start. So, where's sugar in that kind of thing? And then looking at, what is it per 100 grams? Like, learning that kind of stuff, increasing that nutritional literacy. It's not meant to be, okay, track for the rest of your life, because once you have that understanding, that stays with you. And that's something that I like about tracking. I think that's a win for tracking, even if it's on a short term, whether that just be doing a food journal and then talking with your coach about, this is what I've eaten over the last 3 days. What kind of changes would you recommend for improving my diet? So I think that that's really important as well. And back to the training and wanting the quick fix, it does take time learning, and there is a struggle there of, oh, this is hard, and what's in this, and how do I track that? But the other side of that, which might be 4 weeks of you doing that, is you then understand what a serving of protein looks like, and you then understand what carbohydrates and fats are in different things, and sodium intake. So there's a lot to gain by deciding to invest and further and upskill yourself in those areas. So I think it's definitely worth it.
Hell yeah. It's worth every bloody minute of it. And I'm really glad that you mentioned around the nutrition side of things, because I'm very big with everything that I do with my clients, depending on their level of nutrition literacy. I don't get them to go into what they're wanting. And this is something that a lot of coaches have a really difficult time around. This is, the client wants to diet. Well, can the client actually diet this, like at this moment? Are they healthy enough? Do they have a good relationship with food? And depending on the person, you need to first go through a process. And again, the process is going to look completely different to every individual. But what I like to go through is getting them with a foundational type of eating. So like you mentioned, it could be a food diary, it could be photos. It's getting them to reconnect their mind and body with their hunger cues, practicing an understanding of where the literacy is around eating. And then from there, maybe it is the tracking, maybe it's more informed eating. There's so many varieties around this. And I think a lot of people also have this misunderstanding about intuitive eating, because to be honest, most of us don't fucking know how to intuitive eating. Seriously.
And you go, sorry. I was going to say, if it was that easy, then we'd all just be intuitive.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, like one morning I will wake up and be like, no, I don't feel like having eggs. I'm going to have a piece of cake I had for dessert last night. It's just like, doesn't work that way. So again, you have to earn those skills, as I mentioned, like going through the foundation, the tracking, the informed eating, and then maybe it's into intuitive eating. But it looks completely different to every individual. Like some people get it within months, some people it takes them years, and that's fine. You know, even as coaches, I remember at my starting phase of coaching, I had to really understand the foundation of eating because I had a poor relationship with food where I was able to have a better foundation. Then I went into the tracking instead of just diving straight into tracking with an eating disorder, which didn't work for me.
Yeah, I think a few points that kind of stuck out to me then, which was identifying if you're ready to diet. And as a coach, giving clients a bit of what they want, but mostly what they need.
Yeah.
So, for example, like your example there, if someone comes to me and they have chronically dieted and they show you their kind of physique photos and they give you their stats and they're already kind of potentially underweight or they're very lean, there has to be a conversation there about perception versus reality. Are you going to be happy when you keep getting there? What's your quality of life like at the moment with all of the dieting and training? Oh, okay, your libido is really low and you don't eat out socially and X, Y, Z. So there is an element of education there of the why behind the goals and the also looking back at what actually makes health. So if we think about, is it just the reaching that goal weight or being really lean? But then what's your quality of life there? So a big thing that I know you would advocate for as well, which is that promotion of what health actually makes up. And when you teach clients, often they come with those kind of smaller goals and you dig deeper and then they gain an understanding. I've had people before who have kind of not really known that on and off button with nutrition. So it's kind of like really good during the week. And then what do I do on the weekend? And they stress out, and kind of teaching people those kind of foundational nutritional, how do you balance a plate? Here's a plate model example. What does a good meal look like? And once you have that education, you then can allow yourself more flexibility and still adhere to and reach your goals if you do have body composition goals. So again, like you said, there's so much to it and every client is individual. And something that I personally like about the one-on-one aspect is every single person has a different game plan based on how they present in their questionnaire and how they present with coaching, because everyone's a bit different. Some people are type A personalities, some people are type B, some people are more introverted, extroverted. All of these things come to play when it comes to actually serving that individual in front of you.
It's so cool to have a view of what coaching really looks like for a lot of people because, for us coming from the gym floor into the online space, it does have its similarities, but it also has its differences because you're not seeing them in person. You're having to read their personality or their energy through a screen or through an email or through a WhatsApp message. Like it looks completely different.
Yeah, I had a point for the future coaches that are listening to this, and something that I talked about to future coaches when I speak to them one-on-one. And I think that it's so important not to skip from qualification to online. I think you need to do your time training people face-to-face. And I made this mistake as well. So when I initially was qualified, I did want to do online and I did do some online, but it looks nothing like what it does today. Yeah. And I think don't try to skip a step. And I still will do face-to-face probably in the future in a smaller element, not my full-time offering, because I do love it. But it's so much different to online in the aspect that when you have someone in front of you, there's so many things that you pick up and that makes you a better coach. And that translates better to when someone emails you about something, all of those things click because you've had that before with someone face-to-face. There's just things that you wouldn't even think about when you have an email with someone that you learn really quickly. If you're in a commercial gym or a smaller gym and you have someone some people just don't like certain exercises because they might make them uncomfortable. Like, for example, a chin up. There's just some people who won't do that because it's a scary thing, jumping up, and what if they fall? And there's just things you pick up. Like, I've had someone before who just had some mobility issues, and they wanted to lose a substantial amount of weight, and just things that you don't think about until someone's in front of you about the getting up and down out of pieces of equipment, and how can you modify this for this person in front of you. So highly recommend future coaches listening to this to train and work with people face to face, because it will make you a better coach. And I think that it is really necessary. And I became a better coach from getting hands-on, and I would like to continue to do that. There's still so much that I want to learn, that I have to learn, and I think that I will gain that from being coached as well as coaching people online and face-to-face.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree with this. And I think I had a conversation with this conversation with another coach. I can't remember when and who, but we had this conversation because someone approached them asking if it's essential for them to be with a coach who has prior experience as a face-to-face coach. And I was on board with that. I was like, absolutely yes, because it takes a lot more expertise for someone who's not coaching in person. So you're better off spending some serious amount of hours building a skill of how to approach clients in person, but also to see how people move. You can't virtually realize that on the screen. Yes, you get the videos and so on, but there has to be some form of personal element into it. It's like with doctors and nurses, they don't just finish their studies and go straight away helping people. They do placements, they practice, they do hours of work. It's just like my brother's sister just finished her nursing degree. She's doing placement and she's going to be, well, she actually got a job. But you know what? Like, it takes practice. You can't just, as you mentioned, you can't skip that one stage. And I think this is where it's going to be quite challenging for the new coaches coming into the industry, because they're going to be looking at us who have been in the industry for many years going, oh, but they're online coaches. So if they're online, I can be online. It's just like, hold back, girlfriend. You need to earn your time as an online coach by first doing what we did. Because, yeah, I don't know. That's my point of view anyway.
Yeah, and I definitely glorified online coaching in my head when I was studying, and I thought, okay, like, sounds like the ultimate thing. And don't get me wrong, I love what I do, and I just want it to keep growing. But it's not just write a program and off you go.
No, it's not.
There's so many aspects, from marketing yourself to checking in to upskilling to then become a better coach, which is a constant personal development. There's just so much more involved, and I think that you get better at that and understanding that once you do train people face to face, because you realize, all of that contact point with the questions that you get emailed, and then the checking in, and then the updating of the programs. And I just think that younger coach me was thinking that it sounds like, yeah, you just do that and then it's all good. But I think that when you actually get that hands-on experience, you realize what it can be, and how to be a better coach requires that experience that can only really be gained by having a person in front of you and seeing. There's just things that you pick up with putting someone through a movement assessment, and then they're not getting the cue that you're giving them. And it's like, okay, how can I cue this differently? And how do I modify things differently? And it's just building back to what we're talking about, that toolbox of problem solving, basically, and ways to get a different result. There could be 7 different ways to cue doing a squat, and it could be really basic language that you end up using. But if it gets the job done, it gets the job done.
Yeah, so true. If you could do any part of your coaching over again, your face-to-face coaching, what would you do differently?
I think trying to overcomplicate some things as well as trying to get people to train the way that I enjoy training. I think both of those things. The first thing would be I wanted to learn the biomechanics and the technical aspect, which I really enjoy, and there's so much more to learn on that. But I think that my target market is mostly the general population, and they don't care about scapular retraction, and they don't care about dorsiflexion. And
most of the time they don't even know what that means.
Yeah. And what my point being, I think that we need to remember who our target market is, and that demographic need it to just be in layman's terms, because of course they do. They're not studying it, and it's not relevant to them really, unless every once in a while you'll have someone who's really interested in that, and that's fine. You can switch up the coaching method for that person. But I think there was an element of me trying to get a bit too fancy with those clients and quickly realizing that it's just not my audience. And then to the other part, and my point I made earlier, giving people what they need, but also what they want, I think I gave people a bit too much of what they needed. And you need to get that buy-in with it being enjoyable. So something that I do now when I go through that kind of consult phase with clients is I ask them, what exercises do you really enjoy? What was a session that you really liked doing? And it might be something that I will never do. Like they might say, I love doing burpees and I want to train twice a day. And there's going to be an element there of me explaining and educating as to why we're not going to do that. But there will be someone, like I had someone recently who just said, I really love using some machines. I really love using a cable row, something that, you know, a staple in any program anyway. But like learning a bit and asking a bit of what it is that they want. I don't think I did enough of at the start. I kind of just looked at someone who said that this is what they wanted to achieve and I put it together. And for some people that's fine because they just want you to take the lead. But I think from a longevity and a retention point of view, if you can make it a collaborative experience between client and coach and continually ask for feedback, then you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get them happy because they know that they're being considered in the programming point of view, but then also you're happy because they're being more compliant, because they're getting it done, because they're enjoying their sessions. And it's not like every single session it's going to be, can't wait to train, because motivation will come and go. But the basic crux of it is they're going to have a better experience.
Yeah, I love that. So true. Yeah, but by you just saying, you know, in terms of like the exercises, there was a stage that I would just give clients what I usually would do or would think it's right in quotations to that individual. And you know what? You learn the hard way because most of the time they'll hate you for it. So again, that's the beauty of coaching. You have to ask your clients, hey, how's the program going? Are you enjoying X, Y, and Z? If not, why? What are you not enjoying about it? Is it more of a fear base, or is it actually them not being capable to move in that certain, you know, way that you're wanting them to move?
Yeah, I actually have a story that I just popped into my head that I think is a good lesson for future coaches that's really stuck with me. I was mentored by an awesome coach in Melbourne, and he was taking me through sessions and we were talking about different experiences. And he was telling me about a time that kind of one of his coaches kind of had a bit of an issue and a learning curve for them. And I was asking about what happened. And he basically said that this particular coach had done a course about squats. Like I've done one before, like squats, deads, and bench. But they did the course and they were really excited about squats. And they themselves were probably doing a lot of squatting because of what they learned. But this person had a client who prepaid for 10 or 12 weeks of coaching, and they said, I want to lose weight. But the coach who just did the course, who in their own training is doing squats, who was really excited about squats, got this person for the next 10 weeks to squat pretty much every session or every week, and really hyper fixed on the squat technique and barbell squatting. And at the end of that time, that person, that client did not stay. They weren't retained. And I would guess that that's mostly because, one, they probably don't need to barbell squat if they don't want a barbell squat. You can goblet squat, you can use a machine. There's so many different variations, but also they've presented with one goal but the coach in this particular situation has kind of put their goal onto them. And I think that the client themselves would know that, and they're not getting what they want out of it, which is fat loss, which again, it could have kind of been hybrid together if they both collaborated. But I just think that's an interesting lesson, because I'm sure that's something that we've done before and something that you need to learn from, which is making sure you're not kind of pushing your goals onto your clients.
Yeah, totally, because we're all going to have two different goals, and most of the time your client is not going to come to you because the way you're training, it's the way you're coaching, so it's completely different. While we're on the topic of goals, I would love to know, what are you most excited about 2022 for your own goals?
I think I really struggled with the stopping and starting during lockdown. I was so grateful to still have access to a gym and gym equipment during most of that time. But I think just that mental barrier of stopping, starting, home training kind of gets old after a little while, depending on how much equipment you have. And I'm honestly just really excited to, I have a great coach. All of the last coaches I've had have been great. I've been very lucky, but I have a great coach in Melbourne at the moment, Jacob, and I really look forward to our sessions because I'm getting mentored and also training hard. And I just want to see a whole year of me training consistently. So that's my base level goal, because like that will just make me really happy, just having a whole year uninterrupted. But I do really want to deadlift 100 kilos again. And I'd also love to be able to jump up to a squat rack from a dead hang and smash out some chin-ups again. Both things that I could do prior to lockdown, but I haven't done over the last few years. And it's kind of doing my head in as well, because I know that the only way out is through, and I just need to put in the work to get there. So that would make me really happy. As a bit of a sideline body comp goal that's kind of lower in the ranks of importance, I would love to just grow my quads, because I really love the look of strong athletic legs to balance out my proportions. So that's something that I'd love to do as well. What about you?
I love that. That's so cool. So lately, it's so funny, like, seriously, when I have these conversations and someone goes, oh, what about your goals? It's just like, wow. So I used to be so fixated on body composition, like to the point that nothing else would literally matter to me as long as I look good. And whatever looking good meant to me, I have no idea. Like, it looks completely different to what it looks right now. But to be honest, lately, I really haven't spoken openly about this. I am literally training for the sake of my mindset. So it's been a really rough 6 months for me mentally. And you know what? When you are able to head into the gym and just smash out a really good workout that you enjoy doing, that is like a tick in my box right now. And I love the fact that I'm still able to push myself, even though everything else is just all over the place. So yeah, no particular body composition goals. I'm sure down the track, whether it'll be later this year or even, I don't know, 2023. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying that, 2023. So weird. That might shift and I'll go back on focusing on strength. But yeah, at the moment, it's literally just boosting my brain, to be honest.
Yeah, I actually went through a similar period with, body comp strength not even being a focus really. When I mentioned that my dad got really sick, and training was such a good outlet for me during that time. Like, I continued to train week in, week out, and having that time to myself, and also just to as a stress reliever, just as an emotional kind of outlet. I just really, really enjoyed that. And I think when you commit to kind of health and fitness on the long term, you'll realize that your goals will change, and that's completely normal. Like, me going through that period, and then me focusing on strength, and you going through the body composition period, and now you just focusing on training because of how good training is for you. I think that's all part of it. And that's one of the most wonderful things about kind of falling in love with resistance training, is that it's here for the long run, and it can be suitable and adjusted according to what you're needing it for at the time.
Yeah, love that. Such a good ending. Seriously, like making Yeah, making people realize that, hey, it doesn't always have to be about fat loss. It doesn't always have to be about strength. It could literally just be you moving your body because you fucking have a body to be able to move.
Being grateful for being alive, being grateful for having mobility and, full use of your limbs. And you know what I mean? Like, there's just if you look at it real deep, it really just comes back to moving because we can and being grateful for what we've got.
Yeah. Amen to that. Gemma, before we finish up, where can our listeners find you? What platforms are you on right now?
Mostly, I have a website, which is upliftmovement.com.au. Also find me on Instagram at Coach Gemma or Uplift Movement. We'll stick with that for now. I'm going to grow in some other places, but that's where we're at for now.
I love it. Well, girls, make sure that you head over, follow Gemma. I'm sure if you head over and send her a DM, she will be more than happy to have a quick chat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome, girls. Well, I'm sure you would have enjoyed today's conversation and would have taken a lot of good pointers out of what we've spoken about. So if you enjoyed today's podcast, please recommend it, share it, screenshot it, and tag the Women's Fitness Academy, tag myself, tag Gemma. And then until then, final words, Gemma?
Find training goals you enjoy and be in it for the long run, and look at all you have to gain for investing in yourself.
Yeah, girls, invest in yourself.